Hello and welcome to this week's review of the latest episode of My Hero Academia entitled Final Performance. Before we get into the review itself, I want to know what you thought about it, dear listener. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below and you will be read out in next week's show. And whilst you're there, be sure to tell me what you thought about this year's season as a whole, as I do believe we're entering into a little bit of a week out break. Also, whilst you're there, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants to do, because YouTube is increasing the scary place of small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it'll do them a power of good. Now, on to the review. Well, we're really entering into this week's review with a smile on our face and a song in our hearts, aren't we? Ho 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 ho! Okay, please don't take my sass as a sign that I didn't like this week's episode, because I did like it. I liked it quite a lot. And to prove that, we'll get into the positives, as we often do when we start our reviews. And as we have been saying quite frequently over the past few weeks or so, I have to say that I thought that the vocal performances this week were once again just really top-notch. For the benefit of anyone watching these reviews for the first time, I am watching these subtitled, so I'm going off the Japanese performances, and I really do wish that I had spent a little time over the past week or so just getting a list of all Japanese voice actors, because once again, when we had Midoriya just yelling at himself to get moving and to do something, was just brilliantly performed. Just this sheer sense of bloody desperation and pain on his part in that moment and throughout, particularly when he's developing this new quirk that's one of his predecessors has had, this spider sense like thing. It's just the sheer way they're able to convey so much tangible and real feeling pain. It's just an astounding thing to be able to bear witness to. Additionally, as far as the performances are concerned, I think that the part where Toma and All For One, this fusion between the two of them were talking, was just this brilliantly creepy and horrifying moment. Granted, that is helped out quite a lot by this vocal effect that they seem to be done in post-processing, which just makes them sound a lot more demonic and twisted and sinister than they otherwise would have done. We can debate how much that was necessarily needed at that moment, but it adds an extra dimension to the performance, which just makes it all the more astounding. Once again, the animation was superb, Dabi going Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan notwithstanding. Frequently, it was just consistently brilliant. I don't think we had any quite truly epic and astounding animated moments within this week's episode versus previous weeks, though I think that a few of the facial expressions of pain and such did really do something, I think, that was needed to really just convey just how horrifying this entire mess was. One of the more substantial parts of praise that I can give for the episode itself was the flashback sequence, which is, I feel that they were insightful. I do enjoy the part that we had towards the start of the episode with the Creature Rejection Church, I believe that's what their name is, which I believe it was something that was originally supposed to be in the My Villain Academia stuff. I think it was in the manga, but it got cut from the anime, and we're seeing it now, seemingly. Because I do remember a couple of weeks ago seeing an article complaining about the fact that that whole sequence wasn't animated. But all I did at that time when I read that article was just think to myself, well, they're probably going to address that at some point in the future, so just because they haven't animated it then, doesn't mean to say they'll never animate it, and here it is! We get that sequence for what it is worth. I do like the idea that we did get a clear idea as to what motivates Spinner and to why he's there and why he became a villain. I did speculate in a previous review that there had to be more to it than him just being out there with just a desire to kill people, as he just seemingly seemed to suggest in that episode. It felt like it was just putting up this front, just this presentation of him just being a more aloof killer than there being something more substantial to him. He is a follower of Stain. Stain's presence just echoes forth throughout this series like, well, a Stain, and it really does explain as to why he is there and why he's decided to join with the League, even though I do feel that, you know, it's much like the Meta Liberation Army, where even once the League of Villains is destroyed, the ideology that Stain represents, and by extension the Meta Liberation Army believes in, probably will exist long forth into the future of this world for many years to come. I don't think we'll be seeing them as future villains if there's ever a sequel series to My Hero Academia, but they're going to leave an indelible mark upon this world, one which will probably last far longer than Toma and co ever will do. And as far as the flashback sequences themselves were concerned, again, I feel that it was nice to see the backstory of Mr. Compress, seeing his motivations being purer than I think that many of the villains in his group really have. They are pure, at least in principle. The execution of that principle, however, is a whole other matter. You know, he wants to bring about great, much-needed social change to this world, but rather than do it in a Robin Hood kind of way like his great-great-grandfather did, he's just become the underling to a band of villains who, yeah, sure, Tomo, when he wins out, should he win out, is going to bring about a great deal of social change to this world, though likely not for the better and likely not for the kind that Mr. Compress wishes to see happen. You know, I can't help but feel that his backstory, at least his motivations for doing what he's doing, are kind of flawed given who he's being in cahoots with, but I think that's a discussion for a whole other time. I did enjoy, though I use that word loosely, the desperation and just sheer... just how broken everyone looked by the end of this episode. Again, I don't take enjoyment from seeing people in pain, but just seeing the weight of all this action, this fighting, and how it's just broken just about everybody in that closing sequence was just... It gave a weight and it gave a heft to everything that we've seen over the past few weeks. I will admit that, as I said last week, I do feel that this whole sequence has gone on a little bit too long. This whole fighting part of the storyline has gone on a bit too long. So there is a part of me that feels almost as exhausted as some of these heroes do. But hey, we're now at the end of this now. Next time that we come back in a week or two's time, we can start getting into that juicy fallout and just see the true repercussions of all this destruction and insanity that's unfolded before us. With all that said, I feel that we do need to get into the negatives, and I feel that the main source of my negative feelings do come towards, and I hate to say it, because I feel that on balance I enjoyed the stuff more than I disliked it, but I do feel that the stuff with Mr. Compress was probably the weakest element of the episode itself. I can't help but feel that it felt rushed. And whilst I don't feel that you could have had an entire episode dedicated to him and his backstory, I do feel that his backstory should have been more hinted to over the course of his lifetime on the programme, rather than just dumping it all here and now. Now, I will be honest, I'm not really an anime or manga person, that's not really my history or my backstory, but I do understand that this whole trope of getting someone's backstory in a flashback just before they die or before they have something horrible happen to them is just a thing. We had that a few seasons back, and we had Magne buying the farm when she was killed by Overhaul. But I feel that this week it wasn't quite in the same league as that. Compared that, and you've also got the stuff with Twice, and it doesn't really come too close to either of them. Magne's death was just so out of left field, it was stunning. When I saw that happening, I was just floored because I just didn't expect to see it. And the stuff with Twice was far more dramatically heavy and far more tragic because we knew more about him up until the point that he died, which just made his death feel all the more tragic. With Mr. Compress, I'd hate to say it, but for the most part, he's just been a guy in the background with a weird costume and not much else. Us suddenly getting his motivation here and now, whilst it does make it more insightful and does make his death feel a little bit more tragic, it just doesn't really work for me. And even then, we have the whole problem that his motivations for doing what he's doing don't quite stack up with who he's working with. Had he worked with a different kind of villain group, then maybe it would work. Had he been a member of the Meta Liberation Army, just straight from the bat, it would make a little bit more sense. But here and now, it just feels rather short-sighted for him as a character. And if I'm being cynical, it does feel like a point of the people writing this were just thinking to themselves, right, we need an emotional capper for this part of the story. We need to end it on some kind of impactful moment. What have we got? Well, we can't really kill off another hero here and now because that would be too consequential to this fight. It would make the villains get away and probably kill everyone else. So we're going to have to kill off another villain. Everyone that's left is kind of popular. Who have we got? Well, there's Mr. Compress. Alright, here we go. Again, I feel that maybe had his backstory been doled out to us more progressively over the past few seasons or so, would have had a lot more impact. And hell, maybe it has been, and that was something in the manga, I really don't know. But here and now, at least how it's executed within the TV show, doesn't quite have the same impact as I really think it should have done. I won't say that it is not without drama and it was not without emotional weight, but I feel that given everything else that's happened over the course of this season and is likely to happen over the rest of this season, it probably doesn't have the same level of impact as it really should have done. As far as other negatives are concerned, I can't help but feel that possibly too much was going on in this week's episode. We had the stuff with Dabi and Shoto, which setting up last week for this big epic confrontation, and this week just kind of there, just a quick flash with those two fighting. I got really excited when I saw the two of them about to collide. Big impact, nothing else really done. Though I can't help feel that if you were to build on that, that itself would need another couple episodes, which I really don't think we really could have needed. The flashback stuff itself, whilst I did enjoy it, just felt awkwardly thrown in. If I am correct that the whole creature rejection church thing was something that was supposed to be in My Villain Academia from last season, yeah, it just feels even more weird to put that in here. And it feels weird that even more so because, bearing in mind, all this flashback stuff is supposed to be from Mr. Compress's point of view. So we're getting a lot more backstory on Spinner than we are Mr. Compress, which just feels weird to me. It doesn't even feel like an important part within his own flashback. So, of course, we are seeing his interpretation of Spinner's backstory. Or maybe we're also getting Spinner having a flashback as well. It's kind of a bit murky with all that. Which, not the best executed stuff. And, of course, we had all the stuff with Tomura as well, which, again, was fantastic and good and creepy. Could have been its own thing. I think that should have been the emotional capper to this part of the season, more so than Mr. Compress's sacrifice. We've got all the stuff for the Nomu fights. We didn't need to see that stuff. We know that stuff is happening. We could have had a quick flash towards the end of it, just as they're being drawn in to save Tomura all for one. But we really didn't need anything more than that. But as a whole entity, I do have to say that I think that it was a decent way to end this part of the arc. It's not quite as emotionally heavy as I really think it should have been. I don't think it has the kind of level of impact as I hoped it would have done, and I think that at the end of it, it does kind of feel a bit rushed. Which, it always kind of feels weird to me when we get to the end of a very long story arc, regardless of the program it is, whether it's My Hero Academia or Doctor Who or Sons of Anarchy or any other program I've watched over the past, or Ozark, particularly Ozark, where we have this long-running program that really takes its time to develop stuff, when we get these really long story arcs, and then the ending just feels super rushed. And it feels like, okay, maybe we need another 2 or 3 episodes to sort this out, but that's a discussion for a whole other time. With all that said and done, now it's time for Comment Corner! Okay, so we got a bumper crop of comments this week, so do forgive me if I do skip over certain parts of the comments, because it's not out of disrespect, it's just because I don't want this video going on for too long, but still a massive, genuine thank you for everyone who's been commenting, liking and subscribing over the past few videos or so. It really does bring a smile to my face whenever I see a new comment on the video, and it is great to be able to engage with a wider community and discuss my thoughts and feelings and learn about other people's thoughts and feelings about this program. With all that said, let us get into our first comment, which comes from Big X1, who says, I cheered when Lemillion came back. It's probably my favourite moment of this season, and I have to say that for me personally, it's probably up there. I wouldn't say that it's my favourite moment of this season, but it certainly has been a standout moment. I think that maybe upon reflection, really could have been done better, but bearing in mind just how much of this story arc had been ruined for me ahead of time, having something like that just come along just really just knocked it out of the park for me. Next up is Emiya Sharu. Forgive me if I got the name wrong, I can't pronounce names properly. They say, okay, a couple things to clarify. The next episode will conclude the fighting. The arc will still not be finished, as the aftermath is included. But that should take only 2 or 3 episodes. After that, we'll be moving on to what is actually my favourite arc. Even with its controversial ending, it is an arc that made Deku one of my favourite characters and introduced one of my favourite villains. And personally, I am looking forward to that. Nothing against what we've had up until this point thus far in the season, though of course I've just been getting really tired of just the constant fighting and not really much of anything else going on. Maybe this it will be something I will be discussing when we have a mid-season review, which should be next week. It depends when this this mid-season break is coming up. I think it's next week, but I have to get official confirmation with that, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Next up, we have Silver Atlas 2706, who says, the Mirio stuff was really bad in the manga. Still don't like it in the anime, but it's marginally better because the animated Mirio really well. I also agree that the effect of Toya's frame in some shots, that with me saying last week that it was a bit weird and didn't really look all that good. It reminded me of Gentle Lover's Gentle's lover mode from Season 4, which was really overwhelming compared to the manga, except when he pinned Deku to the ground. In this case, at least, they use it for only a couple of shots, and for others it looked good. Bakugo's name is amazing and really does pay homage to All Might, whilst still being unique and childish. This is the longest My Hero Academia arc, so it will feel that way in the manga too, but you can see in the last couple episodes the fighting is going to end soon. A pretty good episode, really enjoyed basically everything with Genius and Dynamite, and the clash between Toya and Shoto were really cool. Thank you for the comment. I'm just going to give myself a pat on the back because I didn't totally mess up reading all of that. And also I want to say to Silver Atlas and to the other people who have been commenting on my previous videos, a big thank you. And feel free to anyone watching this to just go back and leave comments on previous videos if you revisit those episodes in the past. And anybody who's watching this episode, who's watching the review, watching the dubbed, because I know that some people are now starting to catch up on the dubbed version as now that's starting to come out now. So if you have any comments, and you're well aware that this review was recorded several months in the past, just leave a comment anyway. I can't guarantee that you'll be read out in a future episode, but I will get back to you in the comments itself. But still, thank you for the comment. I do feel that it is... Thank you for the insight, letting me know a little bit more about how the stuff with Miro was handled in the manga. I still feel that it would have been better had all that stuff had a bit more of a lead into it, how we got a better sense as to how he was dealing with not having his quirk anymore and him getting his quirk back, rather than it just being a side scene, a side flash. But that is how it is. I will at least be happy that the animation of his return was interesting, though of course we will discuss more sequences towards all that kind of stuff with the mid-season review whenever that comes up. Next comes up is Carly254, who says, I think Dynamite is a good name, giving reference to his hero and the reason for him becoming a hero. This is in reference to Bakugo's superhero name. I can't remember all of it, but I think that their suggestion is a great name. Dynamite. I think it's a damn good name. And I was going to say, oh, I would spell it Dynamite, as in All Might, and then I just read the comment and it is spelt like that. And if nothing else, it does make the hero name a hell of a lot easier to remember, and it makes it far more marketable. You can easily fit that on a cup. And last but not least, we come to Ifat Bush Rashu 2860. Sorry if I'm getting the name wrong, that's just how we are. I'm getting a bit tired. The past few days have been really busy for me. I know everyone's rooting for Shoto, but Endeavour himself just said that Toyo's fire is greater than his. Toya is gifted and a natural born talent unlike Shoto. Just wait until Season 7. My man Dabi is a literal demon, yo. Thank you for the comment, and the fight between Shoto and Dabi, at least on paper for me, is a fascinating one because it isn't really a clear-cut thing. On the one hand, you have Dabi, who is pound for pound the more powerful fighter, but you have Shoto, who has his ice powers, which allow him to better regulate his body temperatures and potentially help him last longer when fighting Dabi. But Dabi doesn't seem to care what damage he does to himself, so long as he can hurt Shoto. So it's more of a battle of wills and a battle of attrition between the two of us to who will last out. I'm not going to do a whole death battle thing as to who I think would end up winning in a fight right now, but it is a fantastic matchup. I just wish that we'd have seen more of it this week, but hell, I'm sure that we'll end up seeing more of it over the next few weeks or so. But thank you all for your comments. I'm sorry if I mangled some of them. That's just the dyslexic gobbly poking me in the back of the head. But thank you all for your comments. By all means, leave comments for what you thought about this week's episode and what you thought about this season as a whole. This is, I think, technically the last proper review that I'm going to be doing this year. So I just want to say here and now a big, massive thank you to everyone who's been liking, favoriting, subscribing, commenting over the past few months or so. I really do mean it when I say that it does do me a power of good. It is just a really empowering thing to see people doing this and to leave comments. It really just makes me proud whenever I get a little notification saying such and such left a comment, you've got a new like, and those notifications, it really just keep me motivated. And I hope that 2023 will be a fantastic year for you and those who are most closer to you. I hope the next few weeks, whatever you celebrate, if you celebrate anything at all, would be fantastic. And thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!